Dirextra Construction Business School London.
Good morning, my name is Maurizio Ferrero, I'm an engineer, I'm working in the infrastructure industry. I would like to submit you this brief presentation about an experience that with the company for which I work, we had in Malta for the construction of an infrastructure, in particular for some tunnels. So I will describe you briefly what is the National Flood Relief Project, and then I will start with the description of how this project has been awarded to us and how we have tried to manage the project at our best. So we will describe the procurement system for the NFRP, that is the procurement system that the Maltese government has put on, that is specific for Malta, but the concept behind this procurement system are pretty general. You can consider this the general rule valid in Italy as I think in almost all the countries in the world, more or less. The concepts are very, very similar. Then the tendering process for the NFRP, the description of the tender document that has been we had to fill and how we have prepared the tender, and then a brief description of the way in which we have done the project management services for this tender. This is a brief image that tries to explain why the government of Malta have decided to perform this kind of project. Now I have a video. This video has not been done by myself, but has been taken from YouTube. So at the end of the day, the video from YouTube are better than the one that I have done, because so that is the reason by which the government has decided to design, apply to EU for funding, and then realize the National Flood Relief Project. That is about 50 million euro project. The problem is that in Malta, when it rains, there's not a proper system for the collection of rainwater, and so in a number of areas we can see this kind of phenomena. This was a flooding, I think, in 2012, something like that, when the project was not yet started for the construction. Then, of course, the construction of the project has taken 3-4 years, and so in 2012 the situation was still like that. And so you can see that the amount of water in the road is pretty huge. This area is a pretty central area, so it's an area in which there's a number of people that is living. So this is pretty clear what was happening. Was realized a network of tunnels, basically under public roads, and the purpose of the tunnels was to collect water from the road and transport the water at sea. The project has taken care of the central part of Malta. Here we can have a location of Malta, for who don't know where exactly it is. It's a very small country, south of Italy, and this is the area of Malta that has been affected by the project. Basically, the project was divided in 5 components. This is the main component all this line represents tunnels. These are 11 kilometers of tunnels. Then we have another couple of kilometers of tunnels here, and another 3 point something kilometers here in the southern part. This area that has a different color, here we don't have tunnels, we have reinforced concrete culverts, and some bridges have been demolished and rebuilt with an improved hydraulical section for the, basically that bridges had very small span and central support has been eliminated. So let's start with the procurement system in Malta. We had a brief description of the NFRP, why the NFRP has been done. I think that this is pretty clear because the images was pretty clear. The path of the tunnel, that is not so relevant for the presentation, but I think you are engineers, and so I think that is important to describe. And now we go into the detail of the presentation. We start with the Maltese public procurement system, not because this is of particular relevance, the system of Malta, but because this can be considered a kind of system that can be applied in a number of countries. For the time being, their system is structured in this way. Basically, we have three kinds of contracts in Malta that are works contracts, so the construction of something, building, tunnels, nuclear power station or whatever it is. Service contracts, typical for who is doing my kind of job, so design and supervision, but can be also other kind of services, I don't know, a translation service or other services. And supply contracts. Supply contracts, so I don't know, sheets for the hotel or other things. FIDIC is born, I think, in the 60s when a big international project was developed. The ratio behind FIDIC is to try to set a standard for contracts to be applied in international situation. So they have prepared a number of standards in which very general situations are considered and that can be applied as a base for a huge number of contracts. In the National Flood Relief Project, all the tenders were issued at the cheapest. Now we are going to analyze briefly the discounts that has been done. And here I think is pretty clear. Here we can see the time frame of different contracts. As I said before, we had 5 different contracts. One that is the biggest, and the other one are smallest contract. Not all these contracts have started at the same time. These have started at the beginning, then another one, and then another one. And this was our service contract that was supposed to take care of all the works contract. In this process were involved the project manager, of course, that was supposed to coordinate the works, and the engineering staff. So the engineering staff, hydraulical engineer, geotechnical staff, and structural engineer. Here is not displayed, but we can say that here we have another cloud with the back office that was based in Turin and was composed by other technicians, mainly engineer and geologist, that has helped the three engineers in their work. So for the validation of the project, this was the staff. Supervision of work is the main part of the work, of course, the construction period. In this part, all the staff was involved. Project manager, of course, because has to coordinate, organize the work and the services. The engineering staff, because every now and then some special issue arose for technical problems or some details. And the supervision staff was the part of the staff that spends basically all the day on site, or preparing reports, or in any case was the people who was taking care of the supervision of work. And then the maintenance period. The maintenance period is a period that will last 2 years, in which we are now, because works has been completed in December 2015. So from December 2015 till December 2017, we are in what is called the maintenance period. The maintenance period is a period in which works are completed. The infrastructure is working. We can define this as a kind of first guarantee on the fact that the works has been done correctly in the proper way. Because in this period, the contractor is responsible for something that is not working properly. The delay that you have during the first 20-30% of the project will be reflected till the end of the project. More or less this has happened. It's not a physical law by which is not the hook law by which an elastic and so is a let's say a kind of assumption. But if you see since the beginning that the project in delay, most probably you have to expect that the project will be delayed according to the initial delay. So at the very beginning, these things has to be tackled in a serious way. Of course, the project manager is not God, and the project manager cannot do miracle. In this case, we have not done miracle because the contractor was taking some time, and the contracting authority was not willing to apply the penalties foreseen in the contract. So the contractor has continued to take longer than expected. The contracting authority was not applying penalty, and the final result was some delay in the completion of the work. This happens pretty often, is something, not always, but happens pretty often. We had also design meetings in this project because we had the validation phase of the design. So the first 2-3 months of the project was devoted to the design. And so usually every 3-4 weeks we had a design meeting with the designer of the contractor as an interim meeting in order to check the status of the work and to see if the design, the way in which they want to perform the design, was considered fine from our end or not. This was a choice that has been done at the very beginning in order to avoid to have the design team working for 2-3 months, then the designer submit the documents to the project manager, and the design was not according to the specification, on the interpretation of the specification was not what was expected by the project manager or by the client. So these interim meetings has been done in order to avoid the situation at the end of the project in which you have people that has worked a lot and the result was not satisfactory for anybody. This is a typical section of the tunnel. This is the road header, that is the machinery that has been used for the excavation. The road header is done like that, as a head, a cutting head with a plate in the lower part. So when the cutting head is going to demolish the rock falls down. In this plate there are a proper system that collect the material and bring the material in this part that is a conveyor belt that ends up at the back of the road header and discharge the material on a truck. The truck goes out of the tunnel and discharges the material.
Dear Extra, Construction Business School, London.